Hi there. Welcome to our book group. My name is Mary Roseman, and we are here to talk to you about I Am the Word by Paul Selig. My co-hosts Marcela Nitschke and Heather Wells have joined me in this discussion. And today we're just giving you a teaser. Our book launch will start in January of 2024, so look out for more information on it. We just want to give you a little flavor or a taste today of how wonderful this book is. And just to give you a little background, I have been facilitating different Paul Selig groups, different books, and there's a lot of beloveds out there. As you can see, he's written several books that are just starting now, and they've asked me please to start over again and facilitate. And so what we decided to do is create a book group online for all of the beloveds that are beginning this. And today we're just going to cover 3 little sections of I Am the Word: the initial discussion, the prologue in the beginning, and the preface and forward. Okay, so you really haven't missed anything. Go ahead and read it, and then join us for chapter 1 with any of your questions. And so right now, let's just start with the forward part. This was written by Victoria. She was what I would call Paul Selig's sidekick or support system in the beginning. For all of you Course in Miracles readers, you know the Helen and Bill story. There's always someone behind the scenes helping and assisting with the person who is channeling, because it's not always easy to receive this information. Yeah. And so one thing that really particularly stood out to me in the forward part are the guides that are actually talking or describing the situation that's going on to the reader. And what they say is, we're not speaking to Paul as if he is on the telephone. His physical ears are actually not even involved in this process. The thought is imprinted into him. And because he trusts our energies, he aligns to this, and he's able to hear and repeat. And that kind of sets the tone, y'all. This is all about energy. It's all about frequency. It's not that he hears anything. It's that he aligns himself with a certain frequency, the same way we do when we're listening to a radio station, right? So I thought that was really, it was perfect.
The other thing I thought was very interesting, this whole entire book was written and channeled in 2 weeks' time. So it was February 26, 2009 to March 14th, 2009. So it's a pretty thick book. I think there's 12 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Paul was the channel, Victoria was the scribe, and I believe they did it every day for 2 weeks.
Right.
And she was in California and he was on the East Coast. So I don't know. It's just amazing that the words flowed so quickly and so perfectly. And the channels and the guides actually say they did not really want anything edited.
Right.
Those, I think there may be some.
They wanted it in pure form.
Pure form. Yes.
Right. No one else's interpretation.
Yes. And they will even step in and say, okay, Paul, you need to step out now, or he's getting his,
he's trying to interpret what he's hearing.
He's trying
and it's not helping.
Yes. Yes. So
yeah,
it's very authentic, and it was done very quickly. So
So
I just think it's real important that you get, dear reader, how important they wanted this to be pure and authentic. And Paul has really he's done a good job trying to preserve that. It's just even reported that he would go and express concern with them if things weren't, he wasn't sure this was the right way. He would always make sure. Yeah. And the guides kind of describe this as we are all in a dance together. This dance finally is in its perfection and cannot be otherwise. And so, dear reader, shall we join the dance with Paul and the guides?
Mhm.
So, following the forward was the preface part. And
so the preface basically is Paul kind of explaining. So Paul was a channel of this information before it actually became this book. And he describes how he is a conscious channel and how he would describe it as like reading. He can kind of hear it, but he's not processing it. So it's like just reading. He's just saying words, like reading fortune cookies, but not. He's not understanding. I think they also describe Paul's. He is a student of this work, and again, he's just a channel. So the preface is just explaining how this came to be. That he was already a channel of these guides, and then at some point they said, "We need 2 weeks of your time with Victoria, and we're going to transcribe this into an actual book."
Yep.
And it says the information was coherent, wise, and that the call seemed to be very urgent.
And I think that this part was covered. I think it's very important. I love channel books. What I really appreciated about this was just the preliminary purview that they gave us of what they were experiencing. Right.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool, I think. Okay.
Yep. And I think the what's it called? The next section says initial discussion, but that's already the channel work, right?
Right. Yeah.
Prior to chapter 1, but I think they are kind of like defining like.
This was a discussion that the guides had with Paul and Victoria prior to the book, the content of the book, right?
One thing I do like is that because at the beginning they're telling us this was work channeled between February 26th and March 14th, and throughout the book they date it, so they're kind of telling you,
right,
like the initial discussion was day 1, it was February 26th. Yeah, so let's talk about the initial discussion.
Right. Okay. The issue here is to discuss what it means to be aligned to a Christ vibration in a body that walks around and encounters other bodies in frequency. That's what word is about. In fact, yeah, that's just kind of the basis of all of his books, because it's all about energy, all about frequency, vibration.
Yeah, and I think they emphasize that the work requires the alignment to the possibility that we can develop, we can express the Christ consciousness, because time and again they say what we cannot believe that can happen cannot happen, right? And so there's part where they say we will assume we will work with you both to align to the possibility that restructuring the self in alignment with the Christ frequency is the work of the time. And they say the work of the time, the work of the time. So I think a lot of the emphasis in this part is on us aligning to that possibility, and also to understanding that is what needs to the work of the time, right?
I think they also are explaining Christ consciousness and differentiating it between the religion.
Yes, that what the word Christ may have a religious association, and they want to make clear that when they say Christ, they talk about our divine consciousness, has nothing to do, with the.
But take that even more. The Christ consciousness that we have has a tonation to it, has a higher frequency to it.
Right.
And it's there for us to align with or not. And with this book, it's like the title to our thing. This book is here to unveil all of that and to show us the availability of the options that we have in front of us. Right?
Yeah. And so the work is to raise our consciousness so that we can vibrate at that frequency and embrace that Christ consciousness and express it. Now let's talk about how hard it can or cannot be. There's a paragraph on page 8 that says, now it doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be hard at all. It simply needs to be. And all that is hard is your attachment to the regulations you have placed on the self for the self to be and see and experience the world in a certain way. That's all there is to it. So kind of like have an open mind and don't get attached to our that reminds me a lot of the Course in Miracles, like unlearn everything that you think you know and just come here with like a blank slate and, an open mind and a willingness.
Right. I was thinking, I was having a dream about this the other day. And clearly I was contemplating differences. And the Course really dealt with unlearning. And this deals with remembering. Right? This has always existed. And so we're just tapping into our source, our Christ source that has always been available to us. And at one time we remembered all of this. We're aware of it. But due to our programming, we have forgotten it.
Yeah, and the Course sorry, finish.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the Course in Miracles tells us we have a split mind, right? There's a mind that has learned, and that's the mind that needs to unlearn. There's a mind that knows, and that's what we need to remember. So it does talk also about the knowledge that has always been there, just obscured, covered by what the split mind learned and decided was going to be the reality. So I see them very, very, very much in alignment and pretty much the same. Like I said, the Course teaches in a different way, and probably sometimes this is easier, I guess, to understand than the Course in Miracles. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion, and I know we're going off into a tangent.
I know.
Yeah, it's a juicy one. Maybe we'll do that.
That would be like a great podcast. Paul Selig,
right.
Teachings versus Course in Miracles. Yes.
It absolutely would. But for those that haven't read the Course, it's just about remembering. This is I am word. They're just tapping into an area and slowly luring you into the possibilities of changing your purview, of your experience, of your alignment. Yeah. So the guides were, as they're chatting with Victoria and Paul, they're very much addressing the world of today and how 9/11, what it did to this country's consciousness was pretty detrimental because it put us in fear. In fact, we even have studies of how it affected our millennials, right? It put us in a whole different frequency when the homeland was invaded and attacked, right? It brought the fear to it. And so because the country was in frightened action and then in revenge, which is always unconscious, because one cannot be truly conscious and be in revenge, you'll understand that the course that was acted on was approved of by the mindset of the country that did not believe that a tree could fall in the woods. So it's kind of, they're just kind of addressing how the collective consciousness of this country fell prey to the masses for the need of revenge. Now, I know the three of us may not share that. That wasn't my experience, but we could see. Do you remember all of the turmoil of that time when we just were not thinking as a country? We were just ready to go in and seek revenge and stop the terrorism. Throw me a bone, guys.
Well, I was a new mom. Ian was just born like 11 days before that. So, so it was like, I don't think I even had a TV on at all. So
But yeah, so basically what the guides are saying is we did not anticipate, like you said, a tree. We didn't think anything like that could happen to our country. And moving forward, talking about we are in transitional times.
Okay, so now what they're saying is go from the model of police in the world to the country's role at this time is not to be the leader. It is to be the model of great transition. Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead, babe. Well, I was just, and how this country observes itself in transition will become the marker for the survival of this country in the passing years. You see, we know that these old models of violence don't work. We'll get this, it's the same old, because it's the same. And I don't know if they address it this way, but we know it's the same frequency. It's all energy. And this old energy is not working. Right?
And I think that one thing they want to, a message they wanted to give us on this, when they talk about 9/11 and how the country responded, is they're kind of saying, hey, it's time to awaken the Christ consciousness.
Right.
That, or what's going to happen? You were surprised, you were shocked when you were attacked on 9/11, and your consciousness was so low, like really, that all you knew was to respond with fear and attack and revenge. Well, the times are come when anything can happen, right? Any trees can fall in the woods. And so you need to be prepared. Your consciousness, you need to raise your consciousness so that you respond and you can address, you can actually handle a situation in a way that will make you grow instead of a way that will make you shake in fear and, get denser. So I think that's why they make it so important for now that we really start raising our vibration to really live that Christ consciousness, because it's more important than ever.
That's a great point. I couldn't have said that better, right? And I think we speak of so I'm on page 11, last paragraph. So we speak of the country and we speak of Christ and we speak of the manifestation of the Christ into consciousness as we work forward to bring forth the required changes. We will only speak of the book again and what the book needs to be. Okay. So these are the guides talking to Paul again.
On the next page, I find it very, well, not interesting. It doesn't surprise me, but they are very focused on getting this information to as many people as possible. It says Paul is doing service in this way regardless of what he thinks, and there are many others on the planet right now that are doing similar service because this has to become amassed. I think that is very important. This has to become amassed.
Right.
And I think people like us that are feeling this call to really talk about it and put it out there, the more we can on our podcasts and videos everywhere, and just have people, really contemplating these truths or making them accessible to as many people as possible. Maybe people have never heard about what the Christ consciousness is other than their religious, teachings. I think it's very important.
So they say we will be talking about our country and the rise of consciousness, but so we will be understanding things on a level that is global. And I think that's kind of what you said, Marcela. This is going to be a global.
Well, humankind is humankind. I don't know that, certain countries have a higher consciousness than other countries, but Absolutely. The United States is known to be the leader, and we like to lead, right? So let's lead from that place instead of, the old consciousness that is dense and nobody wants it anymore. I would like to first read this other thing that talking about making this work as massive as possible. It says, when there are enough people, frequency at present, vibrating at a certain level, the change will be significant and will be felt and will resound in a wonderful song. So our work is to the more of us that are raising our consciousness, the more that others will feel it, and the more the song will start, they will want to sing that song too. I think that's pretty cool, the way they say it.
You can see how important, this material is. And it's this, I loved how on page 12, if you can imagine that these temples are being built, the temples and the pyramids, the structures are being described. This is the structure. The consciousness that we're speaking of is a structure. And yeah, you're right, Marcela. It has to get out there somehow. And that's the purpose of all of this with the guides. And then there's another part that I liked, where on page 13, again, second paragraph, where the guides are now talking to Victoria, and I just love the gentle guidance that they give her as a support system. Now, Paul is going to be channeling daily for the next 2 weeks, whether you can be present or not. And we're going to ask that someone be present to take the notes and to hear the voice as the chapters unfold. So even in this part, the guides are talking to us as they're telling us what Paul's, duty is in all of this, to get this out. Well, it's also up to us to really absorb this material and share as much as well.
So Heather suggested we wrap up with this. I like that paragraph, Heather, that you found on page 15. Want to read it?
Yeah, if you want to read that, Marcela.
I can. Yeah. Word, I am word, through this intention to realize this book in its wholeness, in its accuracy, and in its wisdom. I am a clear channel for the transmission that are to come forth in wholeness. Word, I am word, through this intention. Word, I am word. Mm-hmm. Now, so far, I don't think, I may be confused because I already read through some of the chapters. When the part where the guides tell us what word means, is that prior to chapter 1, or is it in these?
I think it's in chapter 1, don't you?
Okay. So next time when we get together to talk about chapter 1, we're going to learn what they mean when they say word, I am word. You probably already read about it, but we're going to talk about the powerful meaning of saying I am word, I am word. And then we're going to talk about Saint Germain and how similar this teaching is to the I am presence.
Tell me. So let's move on to the juiciness that is the prologue, right? To sum this up, I thought this was just a time of, I always use the word owning. Own your true self. Own the divine that you are. And this is going from the programming of humanity to the realization that I am the Christ. And the presentation of the book is the elevation in energy, in frequency. But I use the logical words to describe how the guides say this. And the other thing is so you're owning your divine. But what they're saying is, yeah, we all have a purpose. Every one of us has a purpose. And guess what? It's the same purpose. And your complete purpose is to realize yourself as the Christ itself. And that is the mission of every human. So if we all do this work collectively, and we're all in that energy, right? And we're shining that same light or illuminating the collective. And I want to put this in a way that's easier. If we're all on the same page, right, of what our purpose is, and that is to explore and discover the Christ self that was always yours to explore or to own, if you will, then collectively we create a whole different world. I'm going to give you an example. Go to page 18. Okay. Now, no one is without this promise that the Christ itself will become realized within you to the extent that you align to its vibration, right? So it's always available to you, but there is going to be a little bit of work to it. And that is the promise. And how does this happen? How does the Christ manifest into itself in man? How does one to become himself as Christ? That is the mission of this book. That is the action of this book. And that is the teaching in this book that we will give you. Okay. And so then they go on to tell you, okay, why is this all of a sudden available to us? You know, if indeed I am the Christ itself, but it's an untapped area that's always been with me. Well, they speak of different shifts, different veils that are being uncovered within the universe that are allowing this to be available to us. And so, we always say the universe is working for you. Well, this is what's occurring behind the scenes. Energetically, the universe is working with you. And one of the things the universe has done is he's tapped Paul on the shoulder and said, hey, the guides are like, get your pencil and paper. We're going to start dictating to you, right? Okay, so it's one thing for us to read, because I remember when I first picked this book up, and they really do an excellent job. But I will tell you that if I had picked this book up, say 25 years ago, this is just crazy. What are they, do you see what I'm saying? But with all of the energies that are shifting right now with the universe, this all makes sense, right? So we're just energetically, this is all working to our advantage. The setting, if you will. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Marcela?
Well, I'm questioning. So is it that all of a sudden the energies or the veils are opening, and then now we are allowed to have these truths or have this information passed to us? Or is it that now enough of us have raised their consciousness that now others who were not vibrating at that frequency now have raised enough that they can understand, they can embrace, they want this now. Not understand because they can understand it, but like they want it now. They can align themselves with the possibility, which this says is the first step, right? Because I think this has been available for a long time. I mean, if we read the ancient, even Plato, the Christ consciousness, the message is there. We all are called, we all are in our essence, the Christdom that this talks about. We just forgot about it. And we created in separation, and we created a different reality, and we didn't even want to look at that. But when enough of us are vibrating at a certain frequency, I think we help to wake up the rest, and then all of a sudden the rest are more interested. And I think that's when this information comes to reach the masses, to reach as many people as possible. Right. That's how I feel it happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so I think it's one of the ways it happened. Yeah.
Do you feel, without having any ego and saying this, do you feel that some of us that are on this earth plane have been called to lead the way? That
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if lead the way is the word, right? But and again, nobody is more special than anybody. It's just that some are old souls, like they call, right? We come back and again, and some of us have been here a lot of times, I think. And so the more we have been in other realms, the more when we come back, we have that mission. And like they say, these ascended masters have been here many times, they say. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, I would think that some of us have been here enough, or have already been to the point where we want that. We are open now to that possibility. And some are just here to explore separation, and that's fine too.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say, if you've landed in my group, whether it's a Selig group, the light worker group, the moon, if you've landed here, then you do have a calling. You absolutely do. Now, lead the way. Leadership and lead the way, it can come in so many forms, so if you're someone who's shy but you're home doing your work, we know that's affecting the quantum field, right? So there's all sorts of ways of leading the way. But yes, I always say, if you're in my space, you know and I feel really strongly about it. Marcela, do I think that it's always been available to us? Yes, but there's also, like, it's energy, right? All energy related. And we are in a third dimensional world. And some of us are experiencing the fifth dimension, right? So that wasn't always available to us in the past.
So early, and I would say, for thousands of years, it was a very dense energy.
Yeah. Well, and think about it. When we were, back in the caveman days, when we were just wrapped up in survival, we didn't really have enough time necessarily to contemplate all of this. Our plate was pretty full just living. And so, while I agree that the availability's been there, I just think the circumstances were different. And that's just what I think they're kind of saying. But so this is just the juiciness of the discussions, and that's what I got reading between the lines.
Oh, and
in the prologue, whether it's, I know there's old truths and practices out there.
Also, first time, I think, in the prologue where it starts explaining who is channeling. And I think you said, Mary, later on, it actually has a name, but it's
ascended masters. It's several of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
right.
Masters, plural, that came through different names and over thousands of years in different forms, so that they have lived on Earth at some point. They were teachers, missionaries, and they have a love for mankind that is deeper than you can imagine.
Right.
That's a great point. Mm-hmm.
That is who's channeling Paul. They are a collective group of ascended masters that have been here and have a deep love for mankind. And they are trying to raise the collective energy on Earth.
Right. Yeah. So, the bottom line, this is, so whether, it's available to you now. Period, case closed, end of story. Wherever your mind goes, we could talk about this part for on and on and on, but it's available now. But the first thing is overcoming programming, right? Mm-hmm. And so, or attachments. And so,
before you move on to that, Mary, I just had this crazy thought that we can leave or we can edit out. But the other way that this could be happening is, like, this is really out there, right? But for those of us who are opening to the possibility of multidimensional universes, which I've been open more and more, it's making sense to me. What if, like you talk about the caveman, like those eras, and I think that certain, like, our consciousness, our real self always lives, is always the Christ consciousness, and that's what our real self is, right? And so part of our consciousness comes here to give life to a human expression. How much of that consciousness was in the caveman versus the man of today? So even though it's like a person with Alzheimer's, or a person that doesn't, or a person with, like, mentally disabled, or I have believe, or I'm starting to believe, that only part of the real self of that soul is really active in that, and is trying to experience something, but it's very narrow, and that's why there's no suffering really for that being. It's not even aware. It's only aware to a certain level, right? Because its real self, it's actually dwelling on other universes that are at a different frequency. I think the same can happen with animals and plants and everything that lives. It only has a portion of their real self expressing through that form. And I think that happened with humans. There was so much of that. And then more and more we started, because Christ consciousness, the book says, is actually in human form expressing your divinity. That's a huge, a huge goal, a huge, thought. But I think we're ready now, because we are transmuting the frequency that we vibrate as humans. So
absolutely. And so you kind of answered what I was leading into. And what's interesting, because now I'm revisiting Word, and y'all have been with me for, I've been doing this for years, and I still have my triggers, right? I still have to work through my programming, and I'm like, without realizing my attachments, right? And that's part of my personal, what do you want to say? My own creative veil that I created, that each of us individually needs to deal with in order to raise our vibrations up to the Christ consciousness. And I think the example was the motherhood gig. And we know as mothers how attached to our beloved kids we are. And I was in a defensive mode, so much so that the story took me out of my Christ purview of seeing the Christ and the beloved in front of me. And so we're talking energy, vibration. And so as we go on, the guides are getting us ready, and they're telling us, very clearly that there are certain things that we're going to have to work on, that we're going to have to really strive for, achieve, and be open to shifting in order to become the Christ. They also say, go ahead, babe.
No, I was going to say, they also talk about fear being lifted. I like when I read that part, because that's most of the struggle, right? All these triggers we have is because we still keep some fear-based thoughts, beliefs, whatever. I am not sure exactly what they mean when they say that fear will be lifted from you. I thought, okay, I'm ready. Just because that's the toughest part as humans, is to really find and spot what beliefs do I have that are making me act in the fear-based way. And many times we are not even ready, or unconsciously we don't want to look at those. So I am really excited about how this book is going to help us really go as deep as we need to go to, or just let it be done for us. That'd be the easier way, right?
There's some part in the prologue where it talks about how it helps us shift from our mental and our emotional and our physical mind. And once we can shift that, and we're available, or we can see the bigger picture of it all.
Well, we know, but what about the subconscious is powerful and runs us. So what we know at a conscious level, we know all this, right? But how does that happen at which is the subconscious feeds the real behavior and the real, response?
Well, we get to find out, because that's what this book is all about.
Right.
It's all about a process of, yeah. Okay. So, I want to go to page 22, second paragraph. When you become the Christ, the seed that has been planted has grown into fruition. The Christ is the seed of God within all men, And its awakening at this time is the job. It is the action. It is the requirement. It is the message, and it is the truth of all men. It is for this time. It is what this is for this time, period. That's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This book is just going to be like, well, I mean, just think about it. We're just into the prologue part, and look at all the seeds that we've planted right now. So you're just starting wherever you're at in your journey. Now you're entering into another way, another purview of actually embracing the Christ self that you are.
And then I just found that when we talk about fear, right after that, it says the predominant obstruction to this action has been the frequency of fear. And the fear that has encased this planet for so long is actually being removed.
There you go. That's the purpose of this time. And so if you're here for this reason. That's the very purpose of this time. And so you are living in the times of the resurrection of the Christ. Now, how exciting is that? And this is defined as when we all collectively, with the time and history of humanity where we have an opportunity to become the one within our soul's destiny, right?
And speaking of that fear again, I just found another mark that I had on my book. And I think it's very important because all spiritual teachings start with the willingness, right? Even if you have a little willingness to have this done, to participate in this work, you're going to just different extents, you're going to do it, right? But they do ask, it's on page 25. I don't know if, for those of you who have Audible, I don't know how to make reference to that, so I apologize. But on page 25 of the prologue says, now ask yourself this, am I willing at this time to engage myself fully in a process of transformation that may require me to release beliefs that I have held to be true? Am I willing now to engage in a process that will ask me to recognize my fear and to absolve it from its path by releasing it completely to the Christ? Am I willing now to be on a path of radical change that will leave me naked and resplendent in my frequency and without the tethers to a past self that are no longer serving me? Am I willing now to go on a journey with the Christ of realizing myself as the child of God made manifest that I am intended to be? If you say yes to this, and then read on. I like that because that is these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. And I think if we're here, it's because we are ready.
So, if you're here, you're saying yes to all of this, all of it. And I will say, loves, this ride that you're about to go on, it can be as smooth or it can be as bumpy as you create it. So that's pretty much the chapter. What we would like to do is take you into meditation. And this is I'm not going to recreate anything because the guides have put this so beautifully for us. If you later want to visit it, it's on page 26 and 27. And so what I invite you to do, dear reader, is to just quiet your mind, take a deep breath, and sink into the chair, the couch, the bed, the ground, wherever you are. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge the structure of it and how it supports you. Acknowledge any of the noises in the background. Maybe the chatter of the mind with the to-do list that you got to do. Just placate it. Assure it you will get to it. And one more deep breath. And now we ask you each to begin to receive energy in through the 7th chakra at the top of the head. And we ask this energy to go through the body to align each center, each chakra, each energy vortex in the body to the higher frequency in preparation for the journey to come. And this will happen simply. You allow this, please. There is nothing else for you to do at this time, but align to this frequency through your intention to receive it. And now we're going to work on you individually, where you each are at this time, at the time of your reading. This is the time of the summoning of the frequency. And so we ask you now to receive light in through the third eye to awaken the mind, to awaken the sixth chakra, to awaken the self to your intention of purpose. And once this intention of purpose is set, then the rest of the work can resume. We offer you now this honesty. We will work with you, align to you, and rework that which needs to be reworked for your highest good to the extent that you align to the willingness to be in a transformative process. This will happen now. If you say yes, we will work. And we will open to you as you open to us. We come in love, we come with direction, and we come with an encouraging word. What you will experience on the other side of this shift will be unlike anything you have experienced in your lives. This is the promise of the Christ, to be in the heavens while being on this plane. This is the promise of this time. I am Word, I am Word, I am Word. Yeah. So thank you, loves, for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next time for Chapter 1, The Word. I want to invite you, dear listeners, to comment, like, follow us. Just let us know your journey. Share with us any questions you may have. And keep in mind, we will be starting the series January 1st of 2024. Thank you.